Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Tesin Sanhedrin for Clinical Basis Rav Shapiro. Yesterday, we were discussing Rav Padoy's issue. What happened over here? We had a machlokas whether a child under the age of 9 can impregnate or not, or even shouldn't say that. He could certainly have bia at the age of 9. The question is, can a katan bechlal impregnate, even if he's 10 or 11 or 12? Can he impregnate or not? Rav Chisda said that he could, that a child even a child under the age of bar mitzvah could impregnate, that he could have bia for sure is at 9 years old, and a girl at 3 years old has bia, her bia is considered a bia. But Rabbah said no, that a katan cannot impregnate. He could have bia from the age of 9 till, but up until not including 13, but he can't impregnate. So the Gemara then said, what do you mean? According to Rabbah that he can't, what about, we learned, Tanur Rebbe Shmuel said that a ben Sorah can only be if he's a son, but not if he is a father. Everybody is a son of somebody, but not everybody is a father. If he's also a father, he's no longer ben Sorah Mor. He can't. In other words, if he impregnated somebody, he's not a father. The Gemara says, what do you mean? If he impregnated her after the age of 13, meaning shtei saras and 13. To be bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, you have to have shtei saras, pubic hair, and be of age. We always assume today there's a chazaka that a 12 or 13-year-old, 12-year-old girl and 13-year-old boy already have shtei saras. But if you know that they don't, they're not bar mitzvah. Okay, so the question is this. In this case where he said that Rabbi Shmuel said that a father, if this boy is also a father, he cannot be a ben Sorah Mor, because it says ben, only if he's a son, but not if he's also a father. So how did he be a father at that age? Remember, we said that he's only a ben Sorah Mor from the age of 13 exactly, from his birthday, 13th birthday, until 13 and a third, let's say 13 and 3 months. How could that be? So if he impregnated her after he was bar mitzvah, and she gave birth before he had what's called the zakan, the pubic beard, we'll call that, before the zakan, how could there be such a thing? Rav Padoy said that a ben Sorah Mor possibility, the window of becoming a ben Sorah Mor is only 3 months, from 13 till 13. So you can't give birth, nobody can give birth in 3 months. Ella must be that he impregnated her before he was 13 years old, let's say at 12 and a half, and he gave birth before he got the zakan. So you see over here that a katan could have children not like Rabbah, but like a Chisda. So the Gemara says no, really gave birth. He impregnated her after he was bar mitzvah. And when did he give birth? After when he was 14, whatever, 13 and 9 months, or whatever, 13 and 10 months, right? You said Rav Kasboy said that he could only be for 3 months. The answer is Rav Dimi explained it. We're at the second of the wide lines on the Gemara. This is just repeating what we learned yesterday. Guess Rav Dimi, Amar, he said, Amar, they said in Eretz Yisrael, Ben Haroy Leo Krasav. Doesn't mean that he's a father yet, but he's fit to be a father. And Rashi explains this to me, and I didn't say this yesterday. He means that you could tell she's pregnant. Why? Because a girl, if she's in a 9-month baby, and when she's pregnant for 9 months, she shows already at the 3rd month. And that's his point. So, in other words, we say over here, Ben Velo Av, we don't mean that he's actually a father, the kid was born already, but he means he can call the father because his wife is pregnant, and that's when you see it. Rashi, in the first line of the wide lines in Rashi, says, at that point, you could see if he impregnated her at the age of 13, when he at his 13th birthday, then by the time he's 13 and 3 months, then she would show already. So that's when he's a son who's not roy to be called a father. That means we're not talking about a case where he actually impregnated her or not. The point is that he could impregnate her at the age of 13, and at that point, how long has he been Sorah Mor? What's his window of being a ben Sorah Mor? Up until the age of 13 and 3 months, because at 13 and 3 months she would show, and he could be called. Oh, you're about to have a baby. So that's the idea over here. When Rabbi Shmuel said ben v'lo av, he doesn't mean that he's not literally a father, but he means if he's a ben and not somebody who's fit to be called a father. Why? Because the age of 13 and 3 months, you could see already if he can impregnate a woman at 13, and as we're assuming now, like Rabbah, that you can't impregnate until he's 13. How could it be ben v'lo av then? The answer is that it is only if he's a son, but if he's at 13 and 3 months, he could be a father. He could be a father because he could have impregnated her at the age of 13 exactly, and then she would show at 13 and 3 months. Gufa, this is where we left off yesterday, the third line in the Gemara, the third line of the Wilands Gemara. Amr of Kesuraim Rav Shabsai. Here he brings the name of Rav Shabsai. Call him Ben Sar Mora. The window, how long can a person be a Ben Sar Mora? It's only 3 months, 13 till 13 and 3 months. The Mishnah says from the time he's 13 until he grows the pubic beard, the answer is no, it's either. You have a maximum of either one, whichever one hits first. If he had the zakan, even though he's not 13 months, let's say he had the full zakan when he's 13 and 2 months or 13 and 1 month, that's it. Then he's no longer Ben Sar Mora. You can't hold it, even if he fulfilled all the other requirements of being Ben Sar Mora. We'll see that he was gluttonous and drunk and all that stuff. No, but he's past the window of opportunity. He can't be a Ben Sar Mora anymore. He comes like or either one, whichever one hits first. The maximum is 3 months. If he grew a zakan before, then that would be it. Then the period of being a Ben Sar Mora has expired, either with the zakan or with 3 months, whichever one comes first. Yosef Rav Yaakov ben Arpakod, Rav Yaakov from that city sat before Kamei to Ravina for Ravina. We'll see Ravina is important here. The Yosef he said Mishmei Rav Shapiro said the following. Listen to this carefully. So you see from Rav Kaspadoi, Rav Shabsai, who said that it's only 3 months, right? He said, what did he say? That he said, calling it only 3 months. Why, right? That you see over here. Why? Because that's the time, as we said, we see from this whole memra that he explained, wasn't it? He explained directly, but Rishmal said Ben V'lo Av, once he's roy to be a father, then he's no longer no longer could be a Ben Sar Mora. Why? Because it's 3 months. In other words, they explained, Rav Dimi explained shot in Rav Yehuda Kustumoy and Rav Shmuel that Melov, once he's roy to be a father, it can't be anymore. Now we come to this question. We know a 9-month baby, she shows at 3 months. What about a 7th-month baby? Does she show at 3 months or at a third of the gestation period? Meaning 2 1/3 months. A third of 7 months would be 2 1/3. So he says like this. He said before Ravina, Shmami Rav Yisif from Hasbdoi, Amasham say the Yoletus Shiva ain't over Nicholas Shalosh. If she gives birth, if a 7-month baby, she's not. You can't tell at 2 1/3 months. In other words, it doesn't go by 1/3 of the whole period of pregnancy. These like that over Nicholas Shalosh. If it would be Lamali Gimel. Why do you say? Listen to this carefully. Why do you say that you need 3 months? In other words, that the window is for 3 months. But Trey Fidel Sasaki, all you need is 2 1/3 months. Meaning, because we said before, we're combining what Rabbi Shmuel said, that it's only if a ben and not somebody who could be called a father. How could he be called a father? Because at 13 months, age 13 and 3 months, if he impregnated her at the age of 13 exactly on his 13th birthday, at his bar mitzvah, he impregnated the girl, and 3 months later you could tell. Well, wait a minute. Let's say it's a 7-month baby. Could you tell at 2 1/3 months? So that should be the empire, because at that point he's roy to be called a father. You see from Rav Kaspadoi, presumably it's and Rav Shmuel, that Tan Shmuel, that what Ben V'lo Av. What do you mean? If it's a 7-month baby, would she show with 2 1/3? If she show with 2 1/3 months into the pregnancy, then he shouldn't be able to be a Ben Sar Mora anymore from that point. In other words, let's say he's a bad boy, but it's already 2 1/3 months past the bar mitzvah, past the time that he could have impregnated her, so you should be called roy to be a father. And since you don't say that, you say no, it's the full window of 3 months. In other words, that would be getting him off the hook. If his window was only till 2 1/3 months, right? So it should be over then if you want to do the guy a favor, right? Lamali Gimel betrays Sagi. Amalei, no, so and you should say the window is over there because maybe it'll be a 7-month baby, which could show at 2 1/3 months. And if it's 2 1/3 months, she could show, then he's already Ben V'lo Av, and he shouldn't be able to be a Ben Sar Mora for any time past age of 13 plus 2 months and a third. And since you don't say that, must be that even a 7th-month baby only shows at 3 months. Amalei, no. So Ravine answered, maybe it's always a third. Even a 7-month baby, we show it 2 1/3 months. So Basrubi, go Basarov. Rove women have 9 months, so we go by a third of Rove women. Amor coming in, they said before Yeshua, Amalei said, here we're talking about killing this guy, right? Din and Afush is killing the Ben Saramara. We should look to get him off the hook, right? We always said we go Basarov. Remember, you tend to prosecute him and tend to defend him. You always try to get him off the hook. So over here, say, why kill this kid if he's a bad kid? But he's already, let's say, the 13th. He's 13 months. He's age 13 and 2.5 months. 2.5 months. No, it can't be anymore because he could have been he could have impregnated a woman. And she would be showing at 2 months and a third. So therefore, he's already like an Av. He's like a father, and you should be off the hook. Supposed to try to save the kid. They bought this back before Ravina, who said you go Basarov. By the time we learned, remember when two people said, two Adam came along and said that Reuben killed Shimon. Okay, when was it? One said it was on the 2nd of the month. We had this before. And one said it was on the third of the month. Are they contradicting one another? No. Edus and Kayemes. Why? We assume they're talking about the same case. Reuben killed Shimon. They said this. One said the second one said the month. One knew that the Chodesh was over the previous month, and therefore he said it's the second. Any of that, he didn't know it was a Chodesh Mu'ober, that the last month was 30 days, and he counted a day early. If you don't go Basarov, what do you mean? Well, don't go Basarov. Say name Hani Dafka Masadi. Maybe this one's actually being exact. The one said it was the second month, one said the third of the month. They're contradicting one another. What do you say? Why do you try to say, oh, their testimony coincides, right? And they're talking about the same case. Say, listen, one said the second one said the third month. They're contradictory. Elalab mishum dami because you go basarov. Elalab mishum zirin basar you go basarov. Ruben inshi of the tabaru de'acha. Most people don't have a calendar. They didn't have printed calendars, and most people don't know what day of the month it is. Go ask the Jews here, or ask what day of the month it is on the Hebrew calendar. You know, and last month in January and in March, it's going to be the same Hebrew and English, but in February it's not. Right? Today is the 24th of February, and it's the 26th of Shvat. Right? So not everybody knows those things, right? So you go basarov. So you see, when it comes to din and fashis, you go basarov, and therefore you go by. Therefore, you can go basarov, and therefore he's still ben sarah until most women would show their pregnancy. If he again, we're going with the idea he can't impregnate till he's 13. If he impregnated at 13, she would show at 13 and 3 months. That's the limit. At that point, she's like he could be like a father. And it can't be Ben Sarah anymore. I'll give you another case. How do I know that when it comes to dinner fashis, you don't go basarov? How? Listen to this. We've had this many cases. We had before. A girl has bia. If somebody has bia with a girl under the age of 3, that's not considered bia. It's a priestess. You know, it's promiscuity. It's disgusting, but it's not bia. But if she's 3 years old in a day, if she's 3 years old, she's at her 3rd birthday, she can have bia, and therefore her father could give her over to kedushin. How do you kaddish isha with kesher star bia? He can give her over to some man and kaddish her with bia. V'imbaal yavam kana. Let's say a yavam. Let's say she was married to somebody and he died without children, and the yavam had bia with her. She's 3 years old. He acquires her. You only need a get now. No chalitza. If somebody had bia with her after she's married, somebody else had bia with her, chayev for eshes ish. He'd be chayev. Of course, she wouldn't be chayev because she's a tana. Umetames ba'ala. If she is a nida and somebody had bia with her, mishkav tachton, his mattress is, let's say, under him. Ke'elyon shows that means she'elyon shows what's tummy on a zav's upper, what's above a zav. Nisis lakoin. She marries a kohen. She can eat truma. Baal lechem psulim. If somebody's puzzle slept with her, puzzle because it's considered a bia. Then baal lechem we call a rayas or musbatar. If anybody who slept with her wasn't supposed to, either Ashish Ish or anybody wasn't supposed to see, let's say, a brother or whatever, mumsal al yada, they would be killed. Mumsal aleh. The Hiptor, of course, she's pata because she's a ketana. The amai. Why do you say all that? Why do you say that it's a kedushin and nobody can sleep with her? If they did, they're chayv. What do you mean? Ema islandacy. We don't know. She's 3 years old. Maybe she's never going to develop. And therefore, and the husband who was Makadish her, right? The father gave her over to Kedushin, didn't mean to Makadish her. It's a Mekach Tovs. He didn't mean to Makadish an islandess. He didn't know. And therefore, it's no Kedushin. And therefore, retroactively, anybody who had if she had illicit relations, let's say with she was a married woman and some adulterer came, he wouldn't be killed for that. Why? Because she wasn't really married. Why don't you say that? Maybe she's an islandess, even though it's very rare. So you see here that you kill people even based on basarov, not only because of the case of the second day of the month or third day of the month, but here also you go basarov. Rove is doraisa. Rove is an Indian. Rav Asher said that Svek Svek is also, but once far, why does Svek Sveka, why do we go bus or Svek Sveka? It's a suffix and we're making that way because you go bus a rove. If it's a suffix this, the rove says that this didn't happen. So, why don't you say the answer is because you say rove women are not islanders? The answer was no, that's no proof. Lo, my chayav, what do you mean chayav? Diktani carbon. Maybe you don't kill based on that. And you don't kill. You don't go kill based on a robe. Maybe it just means you're chayav a carbon if he slept with the b'shogeg. He didn't realize that she was married. I have a mumsal al yarkta. He says they're killed. Oh, babala avia. You know who's killed? If her father slept with her, chas v'chalila. Her father slept with her. Certainly, you don't need a kedusha there. That he's not forbidden to her because of anxious issues. He's forbidden because he's her father. The Mishnah said, if any of the rayas live with her, not just the father, anybody, meaning anybody she's not supposed to live with, they're killed, right? And mashma arayas, meaning anybody that she's not supposed to live with because she's married. Allah, my skin at the Kibbulah. You know why it's no proof from there that you go bust a robe and robe women are not islanders? You know why? Because it's speaking more where the person was Makadasher said, I will accept her in all cases. An islandess, normally, if a person marries a girl and turns out to be an islandess, you could say, it was Mekachtos, I didn't mean to marry her. But in a case where he said, I'll marry her under all circumstances, so it is a Kedushin, and therefore, you can't prove it from here just because you go Basurov, it's because he married her. Or not, you're not married, it's not kind of marriage because we assume that she's not an islandess, it's a marriage because he accepted her under all circumstances. So it was Mamash Kedushin. There's nothing to talk about. You don't need Rove over here. So you can't prove it from here. But we did prove it from the second and the third day. And Ravina stood his ground when he said, you do go Basarov. And you go Basarov, Rove women are 3 days. So therefore, even though technically you could say that Ben Saramora his window should be over at the age of 13 plus 2 months and a third, but we go Basarov and we say 13 and 3 months.
That's unusual. That should have been this example, which we don't accept, should have been the first one in the Gemara, and then
go back. Yeah. That's right. Tanabar, Hamasolelas b'binoa katan. Let's say a woman was fooling around. Maybe she gave her. She was fooling around lewdly. Let's say she took a bath and she had her young son with her in the bathtub or something like that. The haraba, and let's say even by accident or whatever, he penetrated her. The little boy penetrated her. So hara is like bia. It's a machlokas. We had it many places in Shas. We had it here also. Is hara just the genitals touching or the beginning of penetration, not full penetration? But he did that. Beishami omrim pasmanakuna. Okay, you slept with your son that you're not allowed to, of course. That's a rayas, and therefore she's puzzled from marrying a kohen. Beisol machshir. Machshir says it's kosher. Now, what do we mean it's kosher? Didn't she have beer with her son? Everybody agrees if he was 9 years old and he penetrated a boy penetrated his mother, she's for sure pasal kohen. That's bia. Right? If he's less than 8 years old, bia is not a bia. So for everybody agrees that it's not a bia. So if he was 8 years old or younger, right? Not meaning if he was below 8. I shouldn't say meaning he's below 8. He didn't have his 8th birthday yet. That's certainly not a bia. It's just touching. It doesn't mean anything. It's a priestess, but it's not bia. The question is if he's 8 years old. Now we've always said that 9 years old is considered a bia. The question is if he's 8 years old. If he's below 8, it's certainly nothing. If he's 9 years old, it's terrible. If he's between 8 and 9, meaning he's had his 8th birthday, Elam ben Shmona. The Beishamai Savri Gamin B'Shanim learned from the earlier Doros. Earlier Doros in the olden days were able to impregnate already and was considered a bia at the age of 8. And they could impregnate, it was a bia, and they could impregnate at the age of 8. Ubeisil Savri Lo Gamin B'Shanim. You don't learn from Doros Hashanim. That's the machlokas over here. Beisil says no, there was Doros Hashanim were able to impregnate at 8. But over here, in our times, you can't impregnate at 8, even though you could at 9. Now we just had a machlokas whether you have to be bar mitzvah or not. right? Rav Chisda says a cotton show it could. Rabba said can't. I think we know today that a 9-year-old could impregnate, right? But the machlokas here is an 8-year-old. Is that considered bia or not? Not only is it considered bia, but could he impregnate? Here we're sort of combining being the bia and impregnating that it's one thing. Could he have? Is his bia considered a bia? And could he impregnate? So Beis Shammai says earlier Doris could at 8 years old. So now too, Basil says you don't learn from there. Now the Gemara is going to try to prove where's a case in history where you find that he impregnated at 8 years old. But Doris Rishonim and Own Dolit. So I'm going to say Eli Melech. It says, listen, hello, Zos Bas Sheva. Who was Bas Sheva? Shlomo's mother, or Shlomo Melech's mother. Zos Bas Sheva Bas Eliam. She was the daughter of Eliam. Eishes Uriah Chiti. We know the story with Uriah. B'ksiv Eliam ben Achitofel Hagiloni. Eliam was the son of Achitofel. So what does that make Shlomo to Achitofel? Achitofel was Shlomo HaMelech's great-grandfather, because Achitofel had a son, Eliam, and Eliam had a daughter, Bathsheba, and Bathsheba's son was Shlomo. Okay, so we'll see a B'ksiv. Now, our whole issue is going to prove that Achitofel, there were 3 generations from Achitofel to Shlomo. Achitofel, Eliam, Bathsheba, Shlomo. B'ksiv, it says, Vayishach bi'ad nasan navi be'krishma Yedidya. This is when Shlomo was born. They called him Yedidya. Later on, he was called Shlomo. 2 years after Shlomo was born, he goes to Avshalom. They were shearers there. Avshalom, that was the story with Amnon. Avshalom killed Amnon. Shlomo was 2 years old now at this point. Avshalom barach ve'elach Geshur. He went to Avshalom ran away after he killed Amnon. He had to flee because he had killed his half brother Amnon. And he was there for 3 years. Now, how old is Shlomo at this point? 5, right? We saw he was 2 years old. Now Shlomo's 5. Except when he returned, Avshalom came back after he was and ran away. He came back. He was there for 2 years. At this point, Shlomo's how old? 7. 2 plus 3 plus 2. Okay, so we're talking about Avshalom. He didn't see the king. This is when Avshalom started to rebel. At the end of 40 years that the Jews had requested a king. I want to go to Hebron. This is when he started rebelling. Achitophel, who was part of his group, part of his I guess what do we call that? They were part of the bad guys. He was part of the group of the rebellious group. Achitophel was basically right. Was also not exactly a but he was part of that group. He wasn't Shlomo's grandfather because he was from a different mother, right? Achitophel raw kilones. So he saw that they didn't follow him, and he realized that he was going to be caught in this whole plan to take over the rebellion. All the rebels who called it, right? Yeah. He loaded up the donkey. He went to his house, and he went and he put his affairs in order, as we would say. He commanded people, gave him a tzavah, and he hung himself. Okay, well, so what does that show about the age? We know Achitophel was Shlomo's great-grandfather. Right? People, bloody people and deceitful people will not live half their days. How long does a normal person live? 70 years. Half is 35. The time they call Doeg only lived 34 years. Achitophel only lived 33 years. Listen careful. Now, so Achitophel died at age 33, killed himself. How old was Shlomo? We just said 7. Now, right, it's 33 years. He was 33 years old. At that point, his great-grandson was 7. Dal Sheva, Davi Shlomo. Shlomo was there for 7 years. Pashlu Esem V'Sheis. So how much is left? 26 years. In other words, he was 26 when Shlomo was born. Okay, but there had to be 3 pregnancies there. Achitophel gave birth to Eliam. Eliam gave birth to Bathsheba. Bathsheba gave birth to Shlomo. So he had to give 3 pregnancies. So Dal Tarti Shana L'Tosabur, take off 2 years for the 3 pregnancies. Each one impregnated at the age of 8, because he impregnated his wife and gave birth to Eliam to Bathsheba to Shlomo. Must have been 8 years old. Plus, you allow for the time of just the pregnancy period. So you see, they give birth at 8. So there's your proof that they gave birth in the olden times, even after Matan Torah at 8. It says Mimai, who says Dilma Tavai B'Teishalit. Maybe the 2 men gave birth. In other words, Achitophel and Eliam, who gave birth to Bathsheba, maybe they were 9 years old when they impregnated. So Bathsheba, Olida B'Shes, maybe she gave birth at 6. Mishum de Issabari. Women have a greater generative vitality. Rashi says they're stronger, right? They're stronger. Isha Darko Leos Bria Marsa, she can give birth faster than men. They can be before. Even though we said, Bisman Azeh, the Gemara says in Yuvamis that she can't give birth unless she's bat mitzvah and to a viable child. But at least in those days, you could say maybe she gave birth earlier. Tata, the proof is David Vlad Mikara. She had a child before a baby that died to David, right? The child before that. So you can't prove anything from there. You can't prove that they were 8. Let's prove it from here. Let's go back to Avram. Ela told us Terach Avram es Nahor ves Haran. Who did Avram and Nahor marry? They married Haran's daughters, right? They married their nieces. Avram gadol minachor Shana. It says Avram. What's the El tells Terach? Terach gave birth to Avram, Nahor, and Haran. We're assuming now that Avram was older than Nahor, Nahor was older than Haran. They were all a year apart. Avram gadol minachor Shana, but Nahor gadol mi Haran Shana. That's what we're assuming. Nimsa Avram gadol. How much was Avram older than Haran? Shtei shanim, right? 2 years. V'ksiv vayikach Avram v'Nachor lahem nashim took him. V'amar Yitzchak Yiska zu Sarah, right? It was Sarah. She called Yiska shesochu bracha kodesh. She was able to see with divine inspiration. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her. Everybody was gazing at her beauty. V'ksiv vayipol panav. He felt when he heard that he was going to have a baby. Vayipol ben Yitzchak. He left. V'yomer belibo. He said, Halaben Meya Shana, can a man, I'm 100 years old, can I, when my wife is 90 years old, can you have a baby? How much was Avram older than Sarah? We know the pasuk is Esther Shanim, right? Avram was 100, she was 90. So he was 10 years older than her. How old was Avram? How much older was Avram more than her father, Sarah's father, Haran? How much older was he? We just said 2 years. 2 years. So wait a minute. If he was 2 years older than Haran, and he was 10 years older than Haran's daughter, that means that Haran gave birth to Sarah when he was 8. Right. He was 8 years old. So he gave birth to says Avram Suta. Maybe no, maybe Avram was the younger of the child. When the pasuk says that Terach gave Elatos Terach Avram Nachar, doesn't mean in that order. That's not their birth order. That's their wisdom order. And there's Avram. Maybe Avram was older. Avram was 10 years older than her, but Haran, right? But Haran was older than Avram. Maybe Haran was older than Avram. Maybe he gave birth to her when he was 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever. Where do you see that the pasuk gives them based on their chokhmah, not on their age? It says Vayinoach. It says Ben Chamesh Me'el Shana. Right, he was 500 years old. As Shem is Chamas Yafas. So we're assuming now that he gave birth to Shem when he was 500, Cham when he was 501, Yafas when he was 502. Shem Gadol Micham. We're assuming Shem was Gadol Micham Shana. V'cham Gadol Yefes Shana. Nimsa Shem Gadol Yefes Shtei Shana. Okay, so we're assuming now that Shem was older than Yefes by 2 years. We're assuming that it's in order the way it's written. Because it says Menoch Ben Sheish Me'el Shana. 100 years after Noach gave birth to his first child, the Mabul happened at age when he was 600. Ksiv El told us Shem after the Mabul. Shem ben Mea Shana was 100 years old. Vayolet esmach pachshad shnatayim achar Mabul. 2 years after the Mabul. Ben Mea Shana. What do you mean? He was 100 years old. 2 years after the Mabul. 2 years after the Mabul would be 102 years after he was born. It says that Shem is Chamas Yafas. If Shem was born when Noach was 500. And it was 102 years later, 100 years of the Mabul, and 2 years after the Mabul, Shem would have been 102, not 100. So he says, Ben Mea Shana, Bar Mea Shana, Betartan Shana. He was, if Shem was the firstborn at age 500 to Noach, and when Noach was 602, 2 years after the Mabul, Shem would have been 102. You see that you listed them derech their chachma. Shem was hachanami derech chachmas and chashavlu. Amar Rav Kana amis l'shmaita kamed Rav Tzvi. I said this for Rav Tzvi ben Ardo. Amar Li atun me'achmas. You learn it from here. That what? That Shem was not the oldest. Shem was the younger one, right? And it was really that Yefes was the older one. It says Shem Chamselos, but it's just the derech chachma, not their birth order. I have a different pasuk. It says Shem Yulad Gamhu Avi Kol Bnei Never. He had all the children of Aver came from him. Achi Yefes Hagadol Yafas was the older brother, not Shem. That proves that the order is not the order in which it lists the pasuk, but the order the pasuk lists is their chokhmah. So Avram was the oldest, but Avram was the oldest in chokhmah. He was the greatest in chokhmah, but he wasn't the older brother. Harun could have been older than him. And the same thing, just like Shem was listed first, Shem was the older in chokhmah, not that he was the older brother. The older brother was actually Yefes. Element on. So again, how do we know about the 8 years? We haven't been able to prove that in those days they gave birth at age 8. The men could impregnate at age 8. Element on. It says Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur lamate Yehuda. Listen, Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur. So who was Betzalel's grandfather? Hur, right? Okay. Who was his grandfather? We'll see. Lamate Yehuda. It says Batamas Azuba Eishes Kaleb. Kaleb's wife Azuba died. Vaikach lo Kaleb es Efrat. He married Efrat. Vatelo es Hur. Now we know who was Betzalel's great grandfather. Hur. How old was Betzalel when he worked in the Mishkan? He built all the kelim in the Mishkan. Bar placer. He's 13 years old. Each man, to show you he was just bar mitzvah. He became a man at that age. Right? The first year when they came out of Mitzrayim, also Moshe Mishkan, he made the Mishkan. Okay, so in the first year that they came out of Mitzrayim, Moshe made the Mishkan. That means that Betzalel was 13 years old then. Shnia, the second year, Heika Mishkan, he built the Mishkan. V'shalch Meraglim, he sent the Meraglim. Okay, what does that show us? It says later on when Kalev was an old man, 85 years old, he said, I was 40 years old when Moshe sent me. Listen carefully. I was 40 years old when Moshe sent me with the Meraglim, right? 40 years old. How old was Betzalel, his great-grandson, at that point? 14, because he was 13 when he built all the Kalim, right? The first year he made the Kalim. Also, he made the Mishkan, so he was 13. A year later, they sent him Ragam out, so now Betzalel would have been 14. And this goes on with the pasuk. Kalev says, "I was 40 years old then. Now I'm 40. Now I'm 85." So wait. So Kalev was 40 years old. In the second year when they left Mitzrayim, and how old was Betzalel? Dal Arbas Arbeser, David Betzalel. Betzalel was 14 at that point because he was 13 years old the year before, so he was 14 now. How many years is left there? Pashalu, 40. What's 40? Take away 14, 26. Pashalu Esrim B'Sheish. You have 26 years and 3 generations. Kalev gave birth to Hur. Hur gave birth to whom? To Uri, and Uri gave birth to Betzalel. So Dal Tartishnane, the Vlasibor. Now you have to take off 2 years for 3 pregnancies. The pregnancy of Hur, the pregnancy of Uri, and the pregnancy of Betzalel. Ishtakach, the Kol Chadachabatim. It must be that each one gave birth. Each one gave birth or pregnant when he was 8. Now, if you might say one might have been 10, well, then the other one would have been 6. So certainly you can see it must be below 8. It's impossible. They're saying impossible. So it must have been that each one gave birth when they were pregnant when they were 8 years old. The Mishnah said that only a son can be a ben soror, not a daughter. Tanya Rav Shimon, Bedinu Shetei Bas really is ben soror mora. A girl could also be like a ben soror mora. Shakol Mitzuyin Etzla Bavera. If she is a drunkard and a gluttonous person, what do you think she's going to become? She's going to become a harlot, and they're going to take advantage of her. Certainly, she'll cause more people to avera. If a guy is so he'll kill, he'll do this or that, he might rape. But a girl, what's she going to be? So certainly, a girl could be a ben soror. Elixir Sakosavu ben Dlabas. Torah said ben soror, not bas soror. Take it from the Mishnah tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Have a good day, everybody. Kol Tuv. Whenever it comes to Tanakh, I get confused.
This whole thing is